Hello, everybody. On behalf of the Highland Park Public Library, we'd like to welcome you to Library in Your Living Room. We are pleased to present Shelf Isolation, a weekly mini-series about books, culture, and what to read next. I'm Sarah Marie, and this is your Information Reader Services Department. To begin our mini-series, I'm going to turn things over to Reader Roundtable expert and moderator, Michelle.
Hi, thanks, Sarah Marie. Hi, I'm Michelle. A book I just finished, which I just talked about last week, called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It's by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It starts with the aging starlet Evelyn Hugo has decided that she's going to place some of her dresses for sale for charity, and she asks a unknown magazine reporter, Monique Grant, to write an article for her. And it turns out that instead of writing the article, she wants Monique to write her life story, which is a huge deal for Monique because not only will it boost her career, but the advance will be hers and it could be worth more money than she ever dreams of. Evelyn Hugo in the movies for about 40 years, and she's most known for not only her beauty, but for her 7 marriages. So she starts off telling her story starting in the 1950s, and it's just a beautiful story of love and sadness and friendship and all of her marriages. It's just a wonderful read if you haven't read it. Taylor Jenkins Reid is known for her newer book called Daisy Jones and the Six. So if you read that and you haven't read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I highly recommend it. So actually I've been kind of in a slump, so I decided to revisit my favorite books. It's called Hark, Vagrant. It's by Beaton. These are just really fun, quirky, sometimes scandalous little comics about history and literature and books. They're just a lot of fun. If you haven't read it, they're just a really good read. It kind of helps with slumps. And that's actually all I have been reading. So I'll turn it over to Beth.
Hello. I am currently reading this book titled On the Run, A Mafia Childhood. This is the cover of the book. We own this book. It is a nonfiction book. It is written by Greg and Gina Hill, who are the children of Mafia man Henry Hill. If anyone's seen the movie Goodfellas, that movie is based upon this book, the son and daughter of this man Henry Hill. It's about their experience of growing up as the children of a mafia man and not really realizing that, and then learning that as young children and having to go into the witness protection program and live the rest of their childhood in this government program, and having to sort of reinvent themselves with new identities, moving to many different locations throughout the US and living this very undercover and secret life and never being able to disclose their background to their friends or to their teachers or anyone really that they've needed to reestablish their life with. It's really interesting. These two children take turns writing their own experiences, from their own perspective. They sort of alternate through the book. The book ends with them reaching adulthood and sort of leaves the reader with the information of how they moved from their childhood into their transitioning to their adult life and how they've been able to cope through that. It's actually really a fascinating book, and it's a very quick read, easy to read, fascinating. So we do own it, and that was the last thing I read before we closed the library. It was very interesting. And now I pass this, I think, on to Gus.
Yes, thank you, Beth. So that sounds like a really good book, actually. I'm interested myself, so I picked that up. So I know if you guys watch the other videos, I like to play games and read books and all that stuff. What you don't know is that I also love to listen to music a lot. So I listen to music a lot. I subscribe to Spotify. Before this quarantine, I would be in the car a lot, listening to my music, and that's kind of what keeps me going every day. So I love music, and I like to read about music as well. So one I want to recommend is called Acid for the Children. It's by Flea. Flea is the bassist for a band called Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it's a memoir of his experiences, not in the band, which is why I kind of liked it. It was everything up until the beginning of the band. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of them. They're very popular. They're one of my favorite bands. I like all types of music, but rock music I like a lot. And Red Hot Chili Peppers is one of my all-time favorites. And this book was very well written. Flea, surprisingly, did a great job with this. It talks about all his experiences kind of growing up, meeting Anthony Kiedis, the singer, going through all the crazy things that they kind of been through together. So it was very fascinating. It was very well written, and I highly recommend it if you're into music. I think a lot of people are into music, which brings me to a music recommendation too. So if you go on Hoopla, you can also download music. One album you got to download. This is required. You got to get it right now. So as soon as you watch this, just go ahead and download it. Is Bob Marley, Legend. That is one of my all-time favorite albums, and it's one of those where I could just listen to all the time. It has the best song of all time. And you guys probably know it's called Redemption Song. It's the best song of all time, so go ahead and listen to that. And when you do, you'll understand. And I always recommend that album. It is on Hoopla, so highly recommended. So this week, myself, I like to listen to my music, keep myself upbeat, stay positive, and that's kind of what I've been doing. And then one more thing, I also want to mention for you gamers out there, the Uncharted series for the PlayStation 4, the collection, which is 1, 2, and 3, will be available for download for free on the PlayStation Network starting, I believe, later on tonight. I don't know how long they're going to run that, but it's free. Once you download it, you keep it. So that was pretty cool. I just read about that, which I will definitely be doing. So that's just another thing you might want to look into. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Stephanie.
Thank you, Gus. So I continued baking, and I was still with Seriously Delicious. In this week, I made the banana bread. It's brown buttered banana bread. And the interesting thing about it is you cook the bananas in honey and olive oil until they kind of caramelize. So then your banana bread has kind of a nutty caramel flavor. Very, very good. Everyone here enjoyed it. So that was the baking, and now you're going to be in for a shock. I did not read a mystery this week. I read Socialism Sucks. It's about two free market economists who travel through socialist countries, drinking their way through bars. Lawson, who is a Cox School of Business professor at Southern Methodist University, and then Benjamin Powell, who is with the Rawls College of Business at Texas Tech. The countries they visited and had lots of alcohol were Venezuela, Cuba, China, North Korea, Russia, Ukraine, and Georgia. Some interesting things they talked about were basically in the United States, if you ask someone for a definition of socialism, they don't really know what socialism is. A lot of times they refer to maybe Sweden or the Nordic countries. Those are really not socialist countries. They said that they basically are capitalism with a big welfare state. So what they do is they tax you out the wazoo. So like a beer, they were saying in Sweden, something that would cost $6 here is about $16 in Sweden to drink because of all the taxes. Some other interesting things that they said was like, Cuba is touted for their healthcare system, but a lot of stuff that they did, which was really interesting, is they kind of looked at how socialism affects women. And one of the interesting, kind of horrible things in Cuba is for every 100 births, there's 72 abortions. So it makes their statistics look like there's all these healthy births, when really if something's wrong with the child, the woman is forced to have an abortion. The other interesting thing they said was, if you look at North Korea, they only allow people to see tourist areas, but it's very contained. So you only go to very limited areas that look really great. But if you want to lose weight, that's the country to go to because everyone's starving there. And so it was very interesting. Like they said in Seoul, South Korea, that the average income is $42,000 and they're fourth in the world as far as on the index. And in 1960 in South Korea, when it was basically like North Korea, the average age was 53 that you lived to. Now the average age is 82. But it was very interesting. They got a lot onto technical information. It was a fast read. I did it actually in a day and a half. However, had a lot of data and it kind of lost me there, but I did like a lot of the little twists and turns that they had. So anyway, if you're looking for anything to read, I highly recommend something a little bit different. Again, it's called Socialism Sucks. Two economists drink their way through the unfree world. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
Hi. I read something a little different. My book right now is What If by Randall Munroe. This is definitely available on Libby, and also his next book in the same kind of like comic science genre is also available on Libby. I believe it's How To. So you can put them both on hold right now if you want to. They're really interesting. They ask questions like, what would happen if the Earth kept revolving around the sun, but stopped turning, what would that do to society? And the answer is very bad things. And he breaks it down into like little scientific details about how this would play out, what it would do to the temperature, what it would do to the weather systems, and intersperses this information with little comics that lighten it and kind of keep you engaged through the book. So I really, really liked that one. I'm very excited to start How To when that hold comes in for me. And another thing that I am reading is a short story. This was published February 2018. It's A Witch's Guide to Escape, a practical compendium of portal fantasies. And this one is free to read online. It was a Nebula Award nominee and a Hugo Award winner. And the Hugo Awards are kind of like the Emmys for sci-fi and fantasy, so you know it's good. The author, Alex E. Haro, also has another book out called The 10,000 Doors of January, which is supposed to be very good, but I was not able to get that and read that before everything closed. So that's next on my list. And now I'll turn this over to Karen.
Thanks, Lisa. First, I wanted to talk about what happened yesterday evening. There was an author who was supposed to come to Highland Park Library and talk about her book. It was Julia Phillips, who wrote Disappearing Earth. And under normal circumstances, I would not have been able to attend because I would be working that night. But this time, I heard it was going to be shown via Zoom from the library. And I thought I'll register, see if I get in. And I think 100 people did get in. And it worked out very nice. You know, we saw Julia Phillips' face, and she had some maps and photographs to show us. She said this is really not her first novel. You know, it's called her debut novel, but actually she showed us a newspaper clipping from 1995 where she was pictured as one of the kids having written a book. And it was a mystery about I think a snowman with the body was hidden inside or something. It was a murder mystery. So anyway, she just gave a short presentation and then took a lot of questions, which we just typed into our computers, and Beth asked them for us. And I was really pleased with the fact that she took 2 of my questions. There was time for that. And she acted, you know, the author acted as though anything we asked, she was just dying to answer it. You know, she was so, you know, so involved and so gracious about it. It was really nice. I think in a group situation, a lot of us wouldn't have been able to see what she was showing us. She shared her screen to show us a map of the area she wrote about and some photographs she'd taken in Russia. And, you know, I think I would have been in the back and I wouldn't have raised my hand to ask a question, but this time it was very smooth and easy. So I just wanted to recommend those events. If you get a chance to go to one, just get a link to join the meeting emailed to you. You use that when the time comes and just wait and it will happen. So that was the first thing I wanted to talk about. And the second thing, I know a lot of you have done different things, you know, besides read, and I thought maybe I should branch out. And so one morning I happened to be listening to the radio and the BBC segment came on and talked about this podcast about Apollo 13. And I'm not somebody who normally follows the space program, but I do remember at another library where I work, Jim Lovell, the commander of Apollo 13, is a resident of the city. He's often being interviewed in one of our meeting rooms. You know, there's often a reservation for Jim Lovell talking to any number of people being interviewed. It's 50 years later this week since that mission went into space and had some trouble I can't really explain and did not complete the mission, but came back safely. So anyway, I listened to I think they called it the countdown. If you just go to the BBC World Service, the podcast is called 13 Minutes to the Moon. And this is what the screen looks like, basically. You can listen to the episodes that are ready. You can also listen to a podcast about Apollo 11. But I found it was really exciting. They have audio from 50 years ago, you know, dramatic music in the background, audio from the present day of the astronauts they were able to interview. So I was really, really pleased. So I recommend that. And since it's winter again here in the Midwest, I have started to make some more soup. And so I used a recipe from a book called Soup and Bread. This was published in Chicago, compiled by a Chicago editor and writer named Martha Bain. And it's recipes and stories behind an event that takes place at a bar called The Hideout in Chicago every Wednesday during roughly the winter, January through March. They have a community soup meal. You can come, give a free will offering, no real admission. I think various professional chefs are asked to cook for this. They bring their own soups and some home cooks bring soups, and bread is donated. Sometimes people bring desserts. It began as an event to just build community and it wasn't really a charity event, but they took the free will offerings they took in and they gave them to food pantries and food relief agencies in the local area. And so far, I think as of the last season, which was 2019, last season they had figures for on their website, which is soupandbread.net. They had raised $90,000 and donated it to food relief agencies and pantries. And they have a good blog. There's all kinds of things you can find out, sample recipes, a sample chapter. This season was truncated because of COVID-19. They had to stop it in the middle of May. And so I don't know how much was contributed this year. But anyway, I hope they do it again. It's Wednesday evenings at the Hideout. We hope next year. And the cookbook is out of print. A few libraries in our consortium own it, and Amazon still has copies. So I'd say worthwhile purchase if you're interested in that sort of thing. And let's see, next I will turn it over to Sarah.
All right, thanks, Karen. All right, my first audiobook for the week was Red, White, and Royal Blue, thanks to Sarah Marie and Michelle's recommendations. Since they've already recommended it, I won't say a lot about it, but a very fun, light, fluffy romance set in a very different political climate. So it was a great escape. So I third that recommendation. My next read this week that I'm almost finished with is The Bookshop on the Corner. This is a very cute story of a downsized librarian looking for a new career. So she purchases a van, moves to Scotland, and drives around selling books out of the back of her van. It's very cute, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So definitely another recommendation if you like books about people who like books. My third one for this week is Go to Sleep, I Miss You by Lucy Knisley. I've read all of her books. I love them. She's right around my age, mid-30s, and I've been reading her books for probably the last 10 years, and her life has kind of followed the same path. She wrote a book about when she got married, a book about having her first child, and this is just cute little comics about the first year of parenthood. I'll just share one that I thought was especially cute and accurate. This is a description of baby teeth and their sharpness, the blade of eternal pointiness, the piercing crystal of impalement, the enchanted needle, de la sharpity sharp, and Powell's little tooth. So this is just, it's very cute. Like every comic I read, I stopped and showed it to my husband because they were all very true. This is the library's copy, so you can put it on hold for when we reopen. But 2 of her books are available on Hoopla. They're both travelogues, Displacement, and An Age of License, which I enjoyed both of those. And I do have one recommendation also from my 18-month-old. This is That's Not My Truck. There's a whole series of these, and they're adorable, and they all have touchy-feely things on every page. And I grabbed 5 of them from a cart in the Cirque workroom to check out right before we closed. And he's been loving them. So those are my recommendations, and I'll pass it on to Sarah Marie.
All right. So this week, I would actually like to revisit Little Women's 2019. I had realized over the course of talking about the movie with my roommate and thinking about it that I had never actually read Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. So I went back. It is available both on Overdrive and on Hoopla. Hoopla does not have holds, so it is available on audio and per ebook. And I finally read it. I have so much more of an appreciation for the 2019 movie. In the book, they did not give Amy's perspective at all. Florence Pugh did an amazing job just living that character, and it was such an enrichment to the original text. Not that I didn't love Little Women, the book, but truly, if you have a chance, if you haven't read the book or you haven't seen the movie, please do both. It is, again, such a beautiful movie that it just enriches the book, and it was such a fascinating narrative perspective to add to the original content. In addition to that, I have been revisiting one of my favorite series that I realized I had not finished. It is Naomi Novik's Temeraire series, which is an alternative timeline fantasy series that asks the question, what would the Napoleonic Wars have looked like had dragons been a part of our world. The first book in the series is His Majesty's Dragon. It introduces us to our world and to our main character, Naval Captain William Lawrence, whose ship has just come upon the wreckage of another vessel, and they make the most wonderful and unexpected of discoveries and just kind of deals with what that now means for Captain Lawrence and what it means overall. The series is tremendous. The world building and historical content alone are superbly done, never mind the fact that Novak has convincingly interwoven what an introduction of aerial combat would have meant during the time of the Napoleonic Wars. Moreover, the stories are not just set in Britain and France. The battles of the wars are discussed, but so too are the political entanglements. And other books in the series are set in China, Australia, Africa, and farther afield. The stories are also just so well done, and Novak is so grounded, not only within the historical content of her work, and she has done a lot of research for that, but she's also really grounded within the voices of each of her characters. Her writing is really strong and superbly crafted. There are 9 books in the series, and though I wish it had never ended, there is hardly a chapter or a paragraph wasted amongst a lot of them. I believe I'm on book 4, but I stopped reading because I didn't want them to end, and I'm just so happy to have picked it back up. In addition to this, my college friends and I have started doing some morning exercises via FaceTime through the YMCA 360 on-demand videos. The YMCA has made exercise and training videos available for free during this period. We just do half-hour sessions, but it's really good to see each other and move. But you can learn more about YMCA's 360 on-demand videos at our website. We have that and a bunch of other virtual resources at hplibrary.org/explore. And I am now going to turn things over to Catherine.
Hi, everyone. So I have 2 books to share today that I finished this week. The first one is Starting from Happy by Patricia Marx. I just love this little mad egg on the cover. I have no idea what that has to do with the plot, but I just loved it. So this is, I would call it a humorous novel or a comedy. It's the story of a relationship, not exactly a romance, but a fairly happy story about a couple, Imogen and Wally. It's set in New York. And the title, Starting from Happy, refers to how Imogen feels when they meet, which is, she's happy enough. She's not interested in a relationship. Wally's kind of the opposite. He's like, hey, why not start a relationship? And Imogen thinks, well, I'm happy with my job. I'm a workaholic. She's a successful underwear designer. What's not to love about that? And what I think really makes this book a little bit different is the structure of the book. So instead of just being divided into normal chapters, it's divided into about 600 numbered chaplets, as the author calls them, which are a few words to a few paragraphs long. And at first, I was a little put off by just kind of the weirdness of the book, but it grew on me very quickly, and I realized that I think what this structure with the chaplets does is it allows plenty of room in there for Patricia Marx to crack jokes, and that's really the great part about the whole book. She inserts herself, like referring to herself as the author in the third person as Patty, and she has these little drawings that sometimes are really just cartoons. It's like the plot just serves for her to make a joke about something. So it was really fun to read. It came out about 9 years ago, I think, and it got a little bit of attention. And then I wanted to read it because I think I saw the review in the New York Times originally. And so now I finally got around to it. And the other book that I have to talk about is American Dirt by Janine Cummins, which is currently on the bestseller list. It was a controversial book, and Oprah did it for her book club and really sort of explored the controversy as well as the book. So, that's out there if you want to look it up. The controversy is not so much about what's in the book as it was criticized quite a lot, is that it's the story of Mexican migrants, and the author is not Mexican or Mexican American herself. And a lot of other authors said, Latin American authors do not get the attention they deserve. Someone is going to tell this story. It should be us. And they have an excellent point, and I would encourage everybody to seek out other Latin American authors and get that perspective as well. Don't just ever rely on one book's perspective. I don't think any of us would do that anyway. So this book itself, though, was a little bit different than what I expected. For some reason, I really thought it was going to be the story of immigrants who had arrived in the US and sort of the trials and travails that they went through here. And it really wasn't. It was the story of their getting to the United States. And it's really an action-packed book. It starts because The main character, Lydia, who's a bookshop owner, family has been murdered. Her husband is a journalist who wrote an expose of the leader of a cartel, and her entire family, her husband, her mother, her extended family are killed, all except for her and her young son, who were hiding. And they have to get out of there. And so she thinks, well, if we can get to the United States, we'll be at least farther away from the danger, maybe not entirely safe. And then it's basically the story of how they join other migrants in trying to get to the United States. They ride a train called La Bestia, and they have to walk, and of course they get robbed along the way. And so it was definitely a page-turning novel. So I did not think it was profound. And so even if you were inclined to think of it as like the story of the immigration experience, I don't think that most people would, but it definitely was a book that held my attention. And I think that's all I have to say about it. So I will turn it over to Jackie.
Thank you, Catherine. So I've only read one book this week. I've kind of had a slow week, but the book I read is Lady Clementine by Marie Benedict, who's written several other books about women who are kind of the force behind great men. Lady Clementine is married Winston Churchill, and he told her when they got engaged that he felt from the time he was a young child that he would be called to rescue our nation in a time of tremendous turmoil. So Winston was pretty much self-absorbed. He was self-directed. He wanted to save the country, and she pretty much used her position to also help him. He was a politician when they first got married, and unlike most politicians' wives who just kind of stood there and stared at their husband, she actually decided to be a political force. She gave speeches, which was unusual for women at the time because they were married in 1908. She worked very hard for Winston. As a matter of fact, at one point she realized that her world revolved around him rather than their children. But it's a very interesting book that Marie Benedict wrote, talking about how Clementine felt that women's roles should be expanded, which was once again kind of unusual around that time period. And she supported Winston in what he did, but she also helped support other areas in their life. The book starts on their wedding day and ends at the end of World War II, and how she helped support Winston in his duties and has helped write his speeches, etc. But also how she felt she needed to help the domestic front during World War II for women to bring up to help Great Britain during the war. It's a very good book, and Lady Clementine, as well as other Marie Benedict books, are available on Overdrive, Libby app, and on Hoopla, which once again has no waiting. The other thing that I thought about this week is every day I get an email from a book club called First Look Book Club, which is put together by Penguin Random House. So it's some of their books. On Monday through Friday, you get an email, and it's usually about the first 2 chapters of the book. And the nice thing is it's a variety of material that they publish, whether it's mystery, romance, suspense, nonfiction. You can get a sense of whether you would enjoy the book. I always have. And this week's book happens to be The Book of Lost Friends by Lisa Wingate. So we'll put the link for the things in the notes field here. And I think you'll really enjoy it because it's a nice way to find some new books you may enjoy reading. And they have a large variety of books that they've done recently. So I think, you would like that. You can also read it rather than an email. You can also just go to their website and look at it. So it's a very nice way of kind of getting some ideas of what books you may enjoy reading. So I will turn this over to Nancy.
Thank you, Jackie. As anyone who's seen this before know, I'm working on a grant, digitizing Ravinia materials with Ravinia and with collections. So I come across a lot of music, even though I like all kinds of music. This is classical music from the 1928. Now, the folks that were running Ravinia in the 20s were very opposed to the jazz age and any kind of new music except for classical music, but it's still interesting. They had children's programs where they introduced children to classical music and played things that you'd recognize today, like the Nutcracker by Tchaikovsky or the Sorcerer's Apprentice. But again, I discovered a new composer, a French composer who wrote for double reeds, Berlus. Now, we don't have anything on Hoopla, Alexander, or even in the catalog, but there's plenty on YouTube. It's very interesting, kind of fun to listen to. And what's also interesting that we found in these programs is that sometimes this community would participate. So ballet pupils would come and dance with the Chicago Symphony in the summer at Ravinia. And again, exploring this, we found out more things. So in 1928, Sigrid Undset won the Nobel Prize for Literature. And it turns out the library could not keep her books on the shelf. There's an article in the Highland Park News that they were very sorry, but they're trying to keep them in. Now, we still have these, And Kristen Lavensdaughter is on Hoopla. It's a newer translation than this, so it's much more pleasant to read. There's a pandemic in it. That's in the last book, so I won't give it away. I actually prefer her book, The Axe, and the series, the tetralogy, as well as, even though Unse is known for historical fiction and medieval Norwegian fiction, she also wrote a lot of contemporary fiction about women that was popular in Highland Park as well, apparently, in the 20th century. Stories about women, single mothers, women going abroad to study. So I think if you're looking for something to dig into on Hoopla, Secret Inset's trilogy is about 1,200 pages in total. And the new translation is quite good. And we also have her books at the library. So that's what I have for today. Thank you. And to Lori.
Thanks, Nancy. This week, I have a few things I'd like to talk about. First of all, I read this article that was in the Smithsonian Magazine online called What We Can Learn from the 1918 Influenza Diaries. And it was very interesting because it showed just the impact of just everyday people writing down their experiences of these things. Well, I think we all know that what we're going through now is somewhat momentous, but what this looks like from 100 years in the future and how important it is for each of us to try to, if you can, talk about what you're going through, what your everyday life is like. And there's some suggestions in the article about how to go about doing that. So it was very interesting. I enjoyed it. It gave me a lot to think about. So I suggest that, you look at that and think a bit about how you're documenting what your everyday life is. The second thing I wanted to talk about is that there's some online film festivals. They can't meet in person, so they put some of their films online. And I watched a short film from the Banff Film Festival, which most of the films there have to do with the outdoors. A lot of them have to do with people exercising or doing things like mountain climbing or kayaking. And I watched a short film called For the Love of Mary, and it's about a 96-year-old man who runs the race up Mount Washington. He started running in his late 60s because his wife urged him to. He had some health issues, and he's 97, and he's still running, still wearing the green running shorts that she gave him. And it was really inspiring and very sweet. Mount Washington is, when I was in high school, I did a trip where we bicycled up, which was basically me pushing my bicycle up it. It's the highest peak in the Northeast United States, and it has very rugged weather in the winter. And like I said, it was a 6-minute film, but it was just very sweet and very inspirational. And so I suggest that you might want to look through the titles that are at the Banff Film Festival. So that'll be in the notes section here. And the third thing that I wanted to highlight was, and I'm going to give you a scoop, Gus is not the only one who scoops everyone here. We are going to have a book discussion group online, and I started reading the book that we've chosen to roll it out. It's Girl, and it's about Audrey Hepburn growing up in the 30s and the 40s under the rise of the Nazis and the Nazi rule. And it's really good. The author is Robert Mattson. I'm not too far into it, but our first discussion will be on the first section of the book, and that's going to be on May 1st. So you heard it here first. And that's all I have for today. So thank you. Nice to see everyone.
Okay, that is it for us today, folks. As always, please remember that we are here for you. We are available for comments, questions, or any concerns that you may have. And you can reach us online through Facebook at facebook.com/HPLibrary, through our Twitter, which is @HPLibrary, or via email at hppla@hplibrary.org. You can also always find this information online through our website, which is hplibrary.org. Our music today was Carefree by Kevin MacLeod. You can find more information about this and the titles we mentioned in the show notes below. Okay, everybody, this is us signing off. Until we see you next, stay safe.